I'm just going to record it and post it and let it do what it do, as they say. So it's not going to be very long, I don't think. So I'm going to address white America. I always told specific students of mine that as soon as these white people find out that they are grouped in with us and we are all being robbed equally the same, hey, they might tear this motherfucker up. So, I extended support in the places I was told. The widow wanted me to use specific people and to do things in a specific way in the name of righteousness. So, not one single person has come after the light has been shined. Not one single person has come to sit and have a conversation in light of the overwhelming evidence as to what has been presented. Not one person. One person who is indisposed at the moment acknowledged with a pledge of tribute, acknowledged the presence of myself. But due to the current circumstances, the reason that person is incapacitated is because he was not the person that I was supposed to go to first in order to clean this mess that was made in Babylon, in order to clean it up. So, I was told, if you know how to read the signs, and if you know the times according to the signs you read, then you would also know the agenda. Now, that speech was called Time Dictates the Agenda. Okay? Now here's the time frame according to the signs as they lay on this day that I'm recording this. The signs tell me now, being that I have done everything that I was supposed to do, because the prophecy said I was going to have every door shut in my face when I go to my own. And it also say when he came to his own, they received him not. And so now we are at the part where that's all done. In the Wisdom of Solomon, it says that they would try his patience to determine if he would be a patient ruler. So they tried my patience. I'm still patient, not irate. I'm tired of smelling baby blood in the air. I'm sick of that. And like just interfering with my sleep pattern. But I can tolerate it as long as y'all like y'all children being used for food. I can tolerate it no matter how bad I don't like it. Because sooner or later, we're going to understand that children are not for food and they're not for sex toys. We're going to understand that sooner or later. We will also understand that as long as we don't do our part, that we cannot be counted among the righteous and not do our part. I've been doing my part for 50 years, or else I wouldn't be making this video. I'm 50 years old. So I was initiated in Chicago by my mother's godmother into the Vadum. And she called my Loa, which in the African culture, the Loa is your ancestral spirit that comes through the family. And certain children are able to fully embody that ancestral spirit. And it's called a Loa. Well, we have a family that we call Orisha. And this is where it all stems from. In the widow's son story, for white people in America, it's y'all turn to determine how many people will be counted among the ranks of the righteous? It's y'all turn now. Because I went to my own and they shut the doors on me. They were supposed to do that according to prophecy so that I would be forced at this time to address white people and find out if everything was in vain or not, right? Because the whole thing was, if at this point, if white people have not assimilated enough of the blood of the gods to ascend, they will not heed the call. And that would set a stage for a mass extinction of humanity. The whole thing was the cleanup from what was done in Babylon. But before the full story can be told, the judgment has to take place. The judgment has to be rendered in a specific manner in a specific location. The opening of Judgment Day has been announced. This is the Jubilee. Now, my promise to the widow was that I would save as many as would want to be saved and taste the savor of heaven. And that I would find a way out of this system for as many would want to be free. I did my part. I found that it's an illusion fixed in place by ignorance on the behalf of those being deceived. It's based on the Roman maxim of law that says, let he who will be deceived be deceived. Now, those were the ones that were the imposters who laid that down. Those were the false gods that you've been worshiping for nearly 6,000 years. Their time is over. They have to surrender their fake God status. And they have to move out of the way of righteousness. We were in Egypt, a high culture, the highest known, even higher in quality than the Sumerian and Babylonian invader who came here. Our empire failed because we allowed them to do some genetics unauthorized from prime creator. In other words, they made something they were not supposed to make, and it created what they call the sins of the world. In order for those sins to be forgiven, one of the gods, at that time they called him Jehute, and he decided that if the widow didn't want mass extinction of humanity again, he would have to fix the genetics so that those who were denied the right to infinite wisdom or higher knowledge, and those who were denied the right to eternal life, would be able to receive those things. Now, we are stuck in this three-dimensional mindset that restricts us from being able to realize that when the ascension moves from the third dimension fixed position to the fifth dimension, we will not be trapped by the bondage of time and space. There will be a new heaven and a new earth. A whole new reality is one vibratory rate up from where we are. Now, if we want to understand the story of the widow's son, there are many, many videos and books about it where you will understand the legend of the widow's son. But the widow's son is an accidental, which means it was made for the Western world. It was an accidental rewrite of what we call in the Kemetic culture the Osirian resurrection. The false gods, the ones who told you in your Old Testament that they create good and evil, those false gods had the world deceived while the genetic spill was being cleaned up. And until the genetic spill was clean, you would not see the widow's son raised. Now, the biblical story of the Temple of Jerusalem had to be built before the Son of Man could return. They are looking for a physical brick and mortar structure to be built in the Middle East. That's not the temple of Solomon. The temple of Solomon is the temple of man. The temple that had to be built was predicated upon a genetic cleanup. It was the temple of man. This would not allow all of us any more or any less right of ascension. But white people was responsible and given full reign of terror to get their one drop of blood so that they could earn the right to ascend. Their reign of terror comes to an end now. They are no longer the highest authority on earth. The crown prince of heaven and earth is the widow's son. The widow is the queen of heaven and earth. And this was all based on the war of the gods. The war in heaven spilled onto earth. It was never supposed to land on earth. Earth was supposed to have been off limits as a soul training simulator. But one of them came in peaceful manner and was allowed to enter the earth realm unobstructed because of his peaceful nature and disposition. And the queen did not think something was right. So she came and pulled me from a different dimension. In another multidimensional form, I am an undefeated general of a mass troop of beings that do not lose. And she asked me if I would come and protect her daughters from Umbaba, never knowing that this Umbaba was a relative of those invaders, but he paraded as a spirit of the earth and a protector of the cedar forest. But to come and assist with protecting the daughters from Umbaba, a group of invaders came and the war began. Now, I'm not going to get into too much of that right now because that's not the purpose of this. But the war that took place, we have fought on this planet through millions of years. What they tell you was the extinction of the dinosaurs was a nuclear winter. None of this stuff is new. As the Proverbs say, there's nothing new under the sun. Because this is all cyclic. Because it's a simulator. It runs in a cycle that's predictable. Once you understand that, you can step outside of the cycle and its unpredictable nature and see the full spectrum of a timeline. Being able to do that, I can tell you the who, what, when, where, and how this devil has taken power. I can tell you the methodology that we have to use under the code of righteousness to reclaim power with the least amount of disruption to our daily lives. If the people that I'm speaking to now, which is white America, can understand this, we can begin to learn how to live like humans again. Because these false gods enforced a law that compelled us to behave savagely and separately as reptiles. In other words, they put restrictions on us mentally that allowed us to primarily draw from what scientists of the brain call your reptilian brain, which is your base lowest nature, by restricting you through clogging your chakras with a nanobot that vibrates somewhere between third and fourth dimension. This nanobot prevents your spiritual self from connecting with source, which allows them to put you on what they call the silver cord and reharvest you through lifetime after lifetime in cyclic nature in order to use you as a slave and a servant and to keep you trapped in a three-dimensional fixed position reality, which is not the natural state for any being that would ascend and have eternal life. We are not designed to be stuck in three dimensions. The three dimensions it's a simulator for the soul so that we can learn and refine ourselves so that we can become gods in a different domain and different dominion. We had to learn using the stretches and the pains of time, and they tortured us with something called death, which we did not know before they came. They introduced death by exploding a collider, a particle accelerator, and causing the fourth dimensional beings that were being trained to ascend to be trapped into a third dimensional fixed position reality. And they seal you in using the alchemical formula that closes your higher chakras, especially the love chakra of the heart. If you understand Qigong, you can ask Qigong healers around the world about this black goo that they are removing from energy centers in people. And they will explain to you that it is a very difficult substance to remove. If you aspire to ascend in righteousness and to feel the love of divine, if you aspire to eternal life, I'm going to tell you what we have to do. You have to find your Knights Templars and tell them that the Crown Prince of the Holy Grail has surfaced. They know what to do. And history has shown that the Knights Templar has been trustworthy in guarding the blood of the Holy Grail. In France has been issued a warning at Notre Dame because they killed a very important Knights Templar and thought that that would stop the widowed son from resurfacing. When they discovered upon invasion in Fort Detroit and being conquered by Chief Pontiac, the chief of the two feathers, the chief who only speaks the truth, is what that means in native culture. He is the chief of two feathers. He's not a full feathered chief because he's only provincial. He only covers a certain area. He is the chief of two feathers who told them, you have offended the Lady of the Lakes with your presence in her right hand. So you see, the sun has to rise from the right hand. The right hand is the state of Michigan, because the mother is Mother Earth. And the sun must rise in accordance with a prophecy that's written in the pyramid structure of the Giza Plateau. And this had to be because of something called the Orianos or the Osirians. Those are us who created the simulator in order to train souls to attain to high value. And so now what we have is a situation where nobody is understanding how dire this is. The first order of business is that they send delegations to pay homage and to query as to the validity of the rise of the widow's son. They know what to do, but there is a certain network that must be formed in the process, because at the end, once they came and gave their questions and paid homage, this is going to produce by confirmation something called in science a 100-monkey effect, because the fallen that they call them was 200, but there were 300 in total. 100 remained as guardians of the righteous and the watchers to enforce the punishment for the wickedness that was laid down in Babylon. So as they enforced this punishment on the other 200 fallen who disobeyed those wicked ones, they done nothing but tried to clean. But the orders had to be enforced because of the ranking system in the whole God system that's above the human system that governs it. These are all systems of nature, energy, and matter. The energies, as you go up, become more fluid through time and space, because time and space does not exist outside of the third dimensional fixed position. These same ones can come into the 3 dimensions and take physical form. And some of them, their physical form, vibrate at a high enough frequency where they can take their whole physical form up to as far as the 9th dimension. Normally they stop at what they call the 7th dimension, which we know in the Islamic culture to be the 7th heaven, where Muhammad went on his night journey as high as the 7th heaven. And so it becomes now open opportunity for white America to fulfill the promise of America and it receiving the grace that it would be promised if it could endure without bringing ruin to all of humanity until now. America has fallen. This is the rise of the Grail Kings. And we can be on the side of righteousness and we can move forward in righteousness for righteousness' sake. Or we can do it the way that I prefer. I can take 50 sisters and clean it up and start all over. I've done it before. But I promised the widow that I would find her out for as many who would want to be free. I found an exit. In their law and their judicial systems are frauds. You have been deceived. White people were put in bondage by the bankruptcy of 1933. The process took over 100 years in laws and systems being created to facilitate the takeover of the entire indigenous peoples who were here, right? And these indigenous people earned the respect of the world when they allowed 13 colonies to set up, to clean up what was done in Babylon. It has been successfully cleaned up, but just because the spill has been cleaned up, where everybody has a right to ascend does not mean everybody will. Because most people will not accept ascension or heaven as a reality. The whole hell concept has been fed to you sideways and backwards so as to have you in a state of continuous fear. You are controlled like cattle with the element of fear. And as long as you're standing in fear, you will not move forward nor progress. And so I'm offering an open opportunity to white America to separate from the hate and the ignorance and the deception and the false gods and all of the things that put restrictions on you becoming your best self. And to take your opportunity to earn your position among the ranks of the righteous. This is not mandatory for anybody. Just know that we all make our own path. Righteousness does not distinguish between your political affiliation, your sexual gender, your skin color. Righteousness is only concerned with how righteous you are. Ascension does not necessarily have anything to do with righteousness. But you have to be righteous to ascend, meaning that somebody who was born to be righteous and who failed in their quest for righteousness can forfeit their right of ascension. And so, we mentioned the Knights Templar and their trustworthiness in executing the rights of the Grail Kings, and they done this as what you call Via Kings. You never knew that the Via Kings were seafaring Templars. So I'm telling you now. And that's why you find Templar and Viking explorations and expeditions in this part of the world long before the investigator that they call Christopher Columbus came this way. The European Templars were well aware of the Americas and the people who dwelled here because we did trade between the two for many, many, many millennia. And so while we done that, we were bringing Europe out of the Dark Ages and civilizing an uncivilized people that was no fault of their own. And in doing so, one of our sisters that they call Helen in Greece produced a high culture from one single school of education set up on the island of Crete. From there, we produced your Aristotles and your Platos and your Socrates, all the way up into your philosophers of war and strategy and things of this nature. We trained your artisans in different forms of art. We taught Leonardo da Vinci. All of this was done through the Egyptian priesthood. All the way into your Romans, who were being taught by what you would call today your Libyans and Carthaginians. They were North Africans from a different clan, but they still had the high sciences. And they were teaching the Romans. And they were under the authority of a different Grail king. And under his authority, they so-called decapitated Medusa. And this is a gender switch when they stalled the high culture developing in Greece and began to pursue through savage brutality in Rome, and to make up for what they lacked in development of artistic skill, they decided that they would take it out in combat. So they would use combat as a form of political and social development and conquest as their tools to establish their governments and systems. So now you see the statue in the book of Daniel. Well, it says a single stone was hewn from a mountain, and it came tumbling down, and it crashed into the feet of brass and clay, and the whole Holy Roman Empire came crumbling down. All rights. America lost World War II, and you were deceived. Operation Paperclip was the successful integration of the Nazi Party into this government that was falsely set up. The same as they set up the false puppet government in Afghanistan. It's how they set George Washington here in America. You've been deceived. I'm here to break the deception. I'm here to reveal one